So today we are going to make salmon burgers. These are the best salmon burgers I have ever had. This is actually a recipe that was put out by the New York Times. So if you are a foodie, you'll know and understand and appreciate how good this is going to be. The original recipe calls for fresh salmon, and I just can't. I just can't justify that unless I was cooking for a really fancy event or something like that where I really wanted to take this to the next level. So I'm actually using canned salmon. It's wild caught canned salmon. I am using 5-ounce cans that I have already drained off. So I'm just going to dump those into the food processor because this is actually, it really kind of just makes itself. There's really not a whole lot of brain power involved with this one. We're just dumping this all into the food processor. And then I have 2 shallots that I'm going to chop and add to the salmon. So that's what I'm going to do now. Shallots, if you aren't familiar with them, are kind of a cross between an onion and garlic in flavor. People who don't like onions sometimes will use shallots instead because it's not as oniony in flavor. It's kind of like if onion and garlic had a baby. That's what it would taste like. It's a little milder. It's not as pungent. And I like them because they're pretty. They're purple. It's my favorite color. So I'm just going to dice these, although I don't really need to do too much because the food processor is going to do all the work for me. But I do want to get it small enough that it'll blend in well. And it is just flying all over today. Now, the sad thing about shallots is they still do make you tear up. So if you're super sensitive to onions, there are things you can do. People who have special onion cutting goggles, you can find them on Amazon. It is a real thing. I've also got friends who just use their ski goggles, which is convenient because here we are in Colorado. Everyone has ski goggles. So just be aware that you may tear up a little bit when you're cutting shallots, just like you would if you cut onions. And I am feeling the sting, let me tell you, from the gases that it releases. And that's why you tear up. It's from the gases that get released when you slice into it. I'm just having trouble getting the outer shell off. Okay, here we go. Come on. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not, just small enough so that the food processor can get in there and work it all together. So once I add all these in, I'm going to turn this food processor on. I'm going to let it really mix things up to the point where the salmon and the shallots almost look like a paste. So here we go. It does require you to scrape things down a little bit. Yeah, if you use a food processor, things kind of get stuck underneath the bottom sometimes, so you have to kind of help it out. So that's what I'm doing here. We're going to do one more round and then it should be perfect. In terms of consistency and texture. There we go. That's what we want. Okay. Okay, so this has been kind of processed. It kind of has a consistency of like tuna salad without the mayo, but it looks like it has mayo in it. So that's the consistency that you're going for. I'm going to go ahead and dump this into the bowl. And then we're going to add some other things to the mix. I'm fighting with the blade. I should just take it out, but I'm being lazy. Okay, so to this bowl, I am going to add about a half a cup of breadcrumbs. Again, you can use panko, you can use crumbled up bread, you can use whatever you have on hand. If you don't have breadcrumbs, I'm just going to kind of eyeball this a little bit. I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of Dijon. I tend to go a little heavier on the mustard. I like that flavor, and sorry, I'm looking for my, again, I'm going to eyeball the measurements here. I'm actually using like a frosting spreader, but I'm going to add in probably closer to 2.5 or 3 teaspoons of mustard, just for that extra flavor. And then we're also adding in some capers. They're made in a brine, so they're very salty. They're kind of like pickled, kind of, in a way. So I'm going to add in a couple things of these. And then we're just going to mix this all together. I'm going to add in some salt and pepper as well. If you wanted to, you could add in some lemon juice. And actually, I think I'm just going to go ahead and add in a little bit, just because it'll elevate the flavors and marry them a little bit better. So maybe just a teaspoon is all you really need. You could even add in some dill weed. If you had dill weed on hand, salmon and dill are a great combination. So you could definitely add that in as well if you wanted to. I'm just mixing this all together. And then these are actually going to go into the freezer until I'm ready to use them. So when I am ready to use them, I'll form them into patties, and I will probably cook them on the stovetop in a little bit of oil that I've heated up over medium-high heat, and just cook them for 5 minutes, flipping them about halfway through until they're evenly browned and cooked through all the way. If you don't want to cook in oil, or you don't want to cook in the on the stove for whatever reason, you can also form these into patties and oven bake them on a sheet pan for about 10 minutes, flipping them halfway through. They won't have as much crunch necessarily, but they'll still be delicious. Those are the 2 ways I would make these. I'm sure you could put them in the air fryer. I am not an air fryer expert, so I haven't tried it that way. So if you decide to try this and you want to use your air fryer, please feel free to share your results, because I'm sure there are other people here who would be interested in doing the same.